I'm Jazz Cole, president, founder of Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated, and you're probably watching this video because you are a parent, you have children, or possibly going to have children, and you have emphasized that it is a very big deal for your kids to learn another language, to be biliterate or speak 3 languages, I don't know. But basically you're here because you want a child in your life to be biliterate. And I want to give you some ways to actually be able to support biliteracy for your kids or your nieces, nephews, any child in your life, and being able to support them becoming bilingual. So the first thing is, if you happen to speak the target language that you want your child to learn, then just speak it. That's like the easy part. If you can speak the target language, then all you have to really do is just speak it to them and expose them as much as possible. According to the smartest kids in the world and how they got that way, one of the things that can help kids become more literate in general is actually reading to them. So if you're able to find books for them to read and reading them aloud to them, especially if they're like 5 and under, that's a really good time to really start getting them to understand stories and putting language into pictures, especially if it's a picture book, in those kinds of situations. So you want to put them in a position where they're able to read. So kind of go back to the last thing about, if you speak the language, then finding material. With one of with my cousin, she is now 3 years old at the time that this video is coming out, and she, I tried to emphasize, because of the fact that I used to, whenever I would travel, I would buy children's books for her. And since I'm the only one in the family that is multilingual, let alone bilingual actually, so I would actually make videos of me reading it to her. And also she would have the book and I would also read it to her in the target language. So that way she would hear it. Encourage them to actually talk about things, especially if you have kids who are in school and they're taking this language, they're enrolled in courses in their school in this particular language, then encouraging them to talk about things. I remember sometimes my mom would ask me, okay, so how well do you speak German? And so she actually got me to answer a question, she would ask me a question in English, because my mom doesn't know any German at all. So she would ask me a question. She's like, answer as if, you were answer this question in German. And it would be the way that it was. And there are things that of course I didn't know, and so I'd say don't discourage your child if there's certain gaps in what they know and what they don't know. That's okay. The main thing is just to get them talking, because speaking is actually a skill that's really relevant to have in that box of of 4 main ways of communicating. So if your kids can actually if they're able to start speaking and being able to get comfortable using the language, then that would actually really help them to build confidence, because especially a young age is a very good time to really start learning a language. If they're under 14, I would say between around up to 10 years old is really a good time to start get them started with learning a language. I was learning French when I was about 11. And by 11, I was in the 6th grade. So I had time to actually grasp it, because I was still at an age where I was I really wanted to learn French in general. I already had it in my mind that I wanted to learn it. So that was really what helped. And that in many cases, I would say that brings me into the next point, is really emphasizing how important this is. In the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about one of his chapters that environment can actually affect these habits. So if you want them to consistently keep learning this language, if the environment, such as their parents, their extended relatives, their friends, whatever situations you're putting them in, you want them to be encouraged to acquire a language, because the people in their environment are really putting that emphasis on them. Don't confuse emphasis with pressure, because those are 2 different things, but emphasizing how important it is, because if the environment is saying this is important, then that also helps them think, okay, this is important, so I need to get with the program because it's emphasized in my community. And then also leading into that is actually learning the language with them, if that's possible. If you don't already speak this language, learning this language with them. I know that I tutor a student who is in his early 40s, and I believe his wife speaks Spanish, and he's learning French from me because he wants to show that his kids that, he actually speaks another language as well. And he actually comes from north of England. So it's interesting because it's like a multicultural dynamic here. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. But, being able to emphasize like, hey, I'm learning this at my age, and really emphasizing in the environment, hey, everyone in this house speaks 2 or more languages. Mom speaks 2 languages. Dad is working on speaking 2 languages fluently. So for the kids, it's like, well, everyone in the house speaks 2 languages, so I should. And so especially if you're learning with them and, helping them with their homework, and also encouraging your kids to teach you in certain cases, because I remember I was taking an online course on teaching languages for young children, is that micro teaching is a very good technique because it allows students to actually teach you what they know. So if let's say you're a parent and you're helping your son or daughter with their homework, you basically want to tell them, be like, okay, well, teach me, tell me what you're learning, even going back to, like I said, encouraging them to talk about things, but also getting them to teach you, tell me something, what you learned today, teach me. And that emphasizes putting them in a position where they're able to actually learn, or because you retain what you learn by teaching other people. And I know that because if you've seen our video about how teaching has actually helped me as a learner, you'll understand furthermore on those points as well. Especially when they start school, I would say it's really important that when you're looking at classes, really emphasizing, like I said, going back before, emphasizing that language learning is important, but also encouraging them. Let's say I know that at the end of the year, we would do schedules where you would actually get teachers to sign or initial to take certain classes for the next year. I don't know, it was like a schedule card. And so being able to look at that and being able to say, okay, yeah, I want you to speak a language, what is available, going through that process with them so that they're taking courses, of course, that they want to take, putting, encouraging, hey, is language going to be in there? How are we going to fit that in there? Because like I said, if you're emphasizing it, as I mentioned before, and also really, helping them through the process, especially if it comes to picking out classes, then that's going to help you as well in terms of supporting your child. Even if possible, traveling, or if you do vacations, taking them to a country that actually speaks this language. If that's not available to you, you can also even think about emphasizing study abroad programs, even looking at, okay, how much money do we need to save to put this kid abroad? Because study abroad programs will change your life. And like I say all the time, I would not be here talking to you about language and culture and all of these things and even all the languages that I've learned, I would not be doing that without my study abroad experience in Paris. So really and truly, it's a life-changing experience. So if you can actually put your finances into it in terms of saving, or looking at, encouraging through that process so that they feel like it's active. It's not just we're learning it, but we're active with it. Because once you put them in those environments where they're learning different things, then it actually will help them be able to really emphasize them. It makes it more tangible when they're going to another country, when they're actually having to be forced to use what they know and also even learn as well. And even with studying abroad, that's actually putting you in a position, or you're putting your child in a position where they're able to make friends. Because studying abroad, like I said, I made plenty of friends while I was in Paris because of the fact that I had a language advantage. So being able to put them in a position where they have to know this language because they've made friends in a foreign country that they want to still keep in contact with. And I'm going to be honest with you, having friends is a very good anchor to help you continue learning. I probably would not have not have continued learning Italian if I had not lived with a roommate who happened to be Italian. So I feel like, okay, I have someone to practice with. So I when I was younger, I actually wanted to learn Italian. I actually used to teach myself phrases on Google Translate. I would write phrases out and then I would just repeat it and listen to the recording. And then now that I'm older, I realize that it's a skill that I would probably need to continue because I know people that are Italian. I remember wanting to learn a bunch of what other language was I interested in? I think it was mainly like French and Italian, but those just because those were relevant to the fashion industry, which is what I went to college for. So learning languages that are relevant to you and your career is also important, in that sense. So like even in that case with encouraging them to learn, I think it's also important that if they feel frustrated, to just say, hey, just learn what you know. Like talk about like being able to make sure you're putting that into their careers, especially if you have kids that are going into college. You want to put that in there and say, hey, you need to, like, let's say if you're like me, or you have a daughter who's going to California to study fashion design. Okay, well, French is relevant. Italian is relevant. Are there any available classes offered? Are you able to do something, even if it's not offered at the school? Is there anything around where we can actually pay for lessons or something like that so that you can actually keep that going? Are there study abroad programs where you're actually able to go? These are things that got me started. So those are questions you want to ask and emphasize to your kids because exposure is very important. Really emphasizing career opportunities, ensuring even doing your own research in the sense of, emphasizing to your kids, okay, what can we do with this link, like with your career? Like if, like in my case with fashion, that's connected to Italian, that's connected to French, in some cases Spanish. It's also connected to Chinese, Vietnamese, like different production companies that are countries that do production in multiple different countries. And so that's really emphasized, especially since now that we're looking at an increase of pay based on whether you're biliterate or not. So those are things that are really, really, really important to emphasize in that process. Overall, I think that for your kids to catch on to that, you want to always be emphasizing and positioning your kids to where they'll see the benefit of learning a language. You don't want to just say you need to learn a language. It's like kind of like when you tell your kids because I said so, and thinking that that's a good enough reason for a child to process this, especially depending on the age that they're at. If they're under 5, typically because I said so would never work because kids are naturally curious and they have to constantly know why. Even for me at my age, in my mid-20s, is that I even see that in myself because I'm very curious and I have a very investigative mindset, especially when it comes to psychology of different people, because language involves people and I really love people. So I feel like it's really important to emphasize learning about the psychology of other people. So other things is that even at my age, we're just really curious. So because I said so and having some sort of non-finite definition or finite reason for why they would want to learn this is not going to be feasible for them. So best thing you can do at this point is just make sure that you're emphasizing the benefits and making them also putting them in positions where they're going to see it, whether it be in their career, whether it be with friendships, in studying abroad experience. I don't care what it is, but just putting them in positions where they're going to be able to understand how important it is or the benefits of it. I would say encouragement is the best thing you can really give them at this point because, like I said, encouragement is basically going to help, especially when they're at a very young age. And like I was saying before, putting them in positions where they're going to make friends is also really motivating because you get culture. And I can't tell you enough how, especially as an American who has been born and raised in Kentucky, where you get people who tell you, oh, you speak French, or are you Haitian? And I'm like, I know I'm Black, but I'm not Haitian, I'm American. And even if I was a French-speaking native, why is Haiti, the first assumption, when there is so much diversity. Actually in Paris, it's extremely diverse from when I was there. So, emphasizing the culture is really, really important because when you have friends, they can actually answer a lot of questions you have in regards to things that you do differently than they do. So bridges the gaps and makes us all it makes us all like, be able to understand each other. And when we can understand each other, there's peace. So I hope this really helps you in the process of getting your child or children into being bilingual, and really where you can actually start to encourage them, no matter what age that they're particularly at. So I'll catch you next time. Bye.